Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. I miss seeing you in class. I know this is not really a substitute for us all being together, but I hope that these videos and the demo I'm going to do for you today are sufficient for what you're able to do at home. Okay, so hopefully by now you've read through the project description and you've put together a sketch that follows the objectives of the project. Your self-portrait in this project should be a narrative, meaning it should tell a story. If you looked at Sarah Swink's portfolio of images of all her work, you should have seen that many of her pieces were just that. They told a story in some sense. Sometimes you had to look at it for a while to maybe understand what that story was trying to get at, where it was trying to go, and sometimes it was pretty obvious. So whichever direction you're taking yours, it should still express the answer to the question, what does quarantine mean to me? What does quarantine look like for me? What does quarantine feel like for me? Okay, so any of your experiences so far throughout this situation are completely valid. They can be joyful experiences. Maybe this has brought you closer together with a family member or a friend, even though you are probably socially distancing yourself from them. Maybe it is that, being away from someone has in fact brought you closer to them in a way. Maybe you focus on some of the downsides to it. I know that for many of you, not being able to see your friends on a regular basis, or maybe your loved ones, is very upsetting. I know that's the case for me and my family here. Maybe you do know someone who's dealing with illness. Maybe just the thought of ending this school year on such a note is really bringing you a lot of stress and anxiety. Maybe it's just bringing on a lot of sadness, especially seniors. I know you must be feeling a lot of things right now, this being your last quarter at SLU. Maybe it's just this whole distance learning thing. I know it has been a learning curve for me. I know it's a learning curve for everyone. We're all dealing with our own struggles with it right now. Okay, so I'm going to start by just using the tool that I made, my clay cutter, and I'm going to cut a chunk of clay off my block here. Now, I know you guys have a much smaller block of clay, but you should still have plenty in order to do this project. I'm hoping we'll have a little bit more left over at the end of it to be able to do a smaller project to end our semester together. Okay, so I'm just going to unwrap my clay. Sorry, my iPad's a little wobbly. It's kind of precariously sitting on a few items to hold it at the right angle. Okay, so here's my clay cutter. It's nothing special, dental floss, again, 2 little pieces of hardware. So I'm just gonna grab the ends of it and kind of wrap my fingers around, okay, to pull it taut. And I'm going to cut off a section, maybe an inch, inch and a half down, and just pull that clay cutter straight through. Okay, doesn't have to be a perfectly even cut because we're going to take this clay and we're going to reshape it anyway. Okay, so I'll set that here for now. Make sure that you're wrapping up the remainder of your clay as you're doing this because I don't want it to dry out before we're finished using it. Okay, so wrap it back up. You should all have a rubber band. Maybe some of you had a twist tie. Okay, I'm going to take my block of clay and I'm going to begin to shape it. Now what we're going to be doing with these sculptures is we're going to be building them as solid pieces of clay, and then we're going to go in with our loop tool and maybe a few other tools that you guys have gathered together and begin to cut out the inside to hollow it out so that nothing is too thick. In the case that we do fire these, we don't want them to explode, right? So I'm going to take my block of clay here, and I'm going to maybe take a little bit of a section out to save some for my head. I can always grab more clay from my big block of clay, but this is a little large for maybe just making the main part of my body of my sculpture. So I showed you guys my sketch on canvas. I actually changed my sketch up a little bit to look like this. And that's mostly because I wanted to make a pretty solid structure that didn't have a lot of little skinny pieces coming off of it. I want to make it as strong and solid as possible. I want to put those pieces together securely instead of having those little figures on my shoulder. I decided to change that so that I was building more straight up. So that I had some different layers kind of on top of my head. Those are my kids, by the way. And wouldn't have to worry about those little pieces, my kids on my shoulder, breaking off. Okay, so I'm going to start with this piece of clay just being the main part of my body. All right, now I'm not going to slam it on the table here because I don't want my iPad to fall over. So I just have a board on my lap that I'm going to work it onto. But whatever you're working on, just make sure it's a stable surface, a sturdy table, maybe your kitchen counters are good. Even take it outside and work it on the sidewalk if you have nowhere else to go. Okay, so something that looks just very generally like a lump of clay, okay? So in hitting it, I'm rounding out some of those sharper edges, and any little creases or folds like this you have, you can just take your thumb and pull those together, and then just keep hitting it with your hand until it's generally the shape you want. Give it a nice flat bottom so it's stable and doesn't tip over as you're working on sculpting it further.